It's time to get the breakdown started. 1, 2, 3, First up, 10 observations.
Mr. Good guy and just boom, put it right on the ground.
It's First and 10.
Every Monday after a Commanders game, we do First and 10, starting with, well, you know.
Number 1.
The defense felt, the word I'm going to use is inevitable. And at that point, Jack Del Rio had to go. Now, are they rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic? To an extent, but it's not a perfect analogy because there are things you're trying to evaluate. It'd be like if as the Titanic was sinking, there were engineers running around being like, look, we know the ship's going down, but does this part work? Oh, okay, that's cool. Let's salvage that for later for a new ship. So throw that insert boat part here in a life raft. We'll use it next time. Sorry to the people who are going to be lost along the way. And that's realistically where they're at now. They're at an evaluation point moving forward, and what they needed to do was figure out a defense that they can play where they can actually look at the pieces. Because this one stinks. It stinks to the high heavens, and the players can't play it, which makes it impossible to evaluate the players other than to say, hey, whatever scheme they're trying to operate, they can't do that. And there is no more inevitable feeling than the first scoring drive the Cowboys had. So the defense actually held once in that first quarter. It might have even held twice. I have to go back and look at the drive chart. There was a lot of touchdowns in that first half. It was like hold, touchdown, 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 touchdown. Hold, third quarter, excellent, pitch to shutout. Downhill it went. And boy, did it go downhill fast, 25-0, including the Howell pick six. Congrats to Deron Bland on your history in the fourth quarter. But on the Cowboys' first scoring drive of the game, that ultimately put them up 7-0. They start in the shadow of their own end zone. They start with Dak Prescott in the shotgun, standing on the goal line. He takes a quick drop and fires an absolute dart over the outstretched arms of Cody Barton. And I'm not saying Cody Barton's name to pick on Cody Barton because that was good coverage. That was a ridiculous throw from Dak Prescott because he couldn't have put it any loftier. Otherwise, a safety would have been able to come over and kill his tight end. Instead, perfectly placed ball over the outstretched arms of Cody Barton, who's running as a Tampa 2 linebacker up the field, trying to do the best he can. And look, it's not perfect. You know, could Fred Warner have made a play on the ball? Maybe, but he's Fred Warner. But it's good coverage. They hit the shot. Okay? All right. That sucks. Now let's bow up and still force a punt. Nope. Completions, good runs. Cowboys commit a penalty. We got him now. Nope, first down. Commit another penalty. First down. And then ultimately, they score. And by the way, they score on that drive despite the fact that Tony Pollard fumbled the football and CeeDee Lamb recovered it. So on that drive, the Cowboys started in the shadow of their own end zone, had a fumble, multiple penalties, and they still scored a touchdown. When your defense is doing that, and it feels like the kind of outcome that has been happening to you all season, it's time to make a change. You just can't go on like that. And they compound it later in that half with the fact that they gave up another touchdown at the end of the half. And they gave it up so fast that you almost wonder if the Cowboys scored too quickly. They didn't. Commanders gave up some sacks. And there went their end of half drive. But the Commanders have literally given up more points at the end of halves than any other team in the NFL all season. Inevitable is the word I will use because it's inevitable that they will just give up a bunch of points. And when it reaches that and snowballs out of control, to use Ron Rivera's word, then you have to do something. You cannot, like Sam Fortier, who, by the way, you'll hear from coming up in the bottom of the hour, asked this really sensational question. I'm mad at myself for not asking Sam about it on Friday when we spoke. And that is, he in the post-game presser goes, hey, can players expect anything to change if you don't make any changes? And Ron very pointedly and somewhat angrily said, I'm not going to answer that question. And in fairness to Ron, he probably knew what he was going to do. He probably knew that he was going to have to fire someone he didn't want to fire because he doesn't want to fire anyone. And that's fine. You shouldn't, if you are in a position where you look forward to firing people, like really ask about yourself. That is not a cool thing to do. Sometimes it's necessary, but it is not something where you should relish ending other people's professional jobs. And Ron doesn't want to do it, but he knew he had to. And to kind of summarize the larger thought here in terms of Del Rio and where the issues lied, and there's a ton that we can get into from like a super schematic standpoint, at times mismatching coverages. Hey, this wasn't the best call for the situation. How often do you bring pressure? How good are you at calling the right pressures, at really scheming up pressure against a team in the way that Wink Martindale does for New York, especially against this team? But I think the biggest thing that I come away with is some quotes from Jack's players, the Commanders' defensive players, and other players over the course of the 4 years. Multiple times over the course of the 4 years Jack Del Rio was the defensive coordinator here, there were quotes from Commanders players saying how difficult and complicated this defense was. It's complex. We do a lot. Sometimes they were complaints. Sometimes they were just statements of fact. But there definitely has been in the last couple of weeks a number of times where, for instance, Benjamin St. Juste is like, if we just played straight man, this might have been easier. Or if we just played straight zone. We didn't do some of the zone matching. If we didn't have so many rules. It's very, very complicated. And one of the things Rivera is going to do is simplify it down and make it easy so that he can coach it, because he hasn't called defense in a long time. And so these players can hopefully play fast and execute. But on the other end of the equation, you have a bunch of offensive players that have played this team and torched them, being like, yeah, their coverages are pretty simple. We know exactly what we need to do, and we execute it. You want your system, offensive or defense, to appear complicated for the opponent and be simple for you. Something you can do well, but it is hard for them to decipher. That is the ultimate goal of a scheme. The Commanders' defense under Jack Del Rio was the opposite. It was hard for the people playing it and easy for the people playing against it. That is the ultimate failure of a scheme. That is why Jack Del Rio, above all else, had to be fired, and it's why he was. The second reason is his staff, which brings us to
number 2.
Brett Visselmeyer was the defensive backs coach, because you might have missed this, he was also fired on Friday. He was a poor choice, all due respect to him. He was a poor choice to replace Chris Harris, who left in the offseason for Tennessee and should have never been allowed out the door. He should have been elevated to defensive coordinator, and Del Rio should have easily, with the benefit of hindsight, but I would have said this at the time, been elevated to defensive coordinator. And it is Ron's job to have known that as the person who oversaw the turnarounds the last couple of years. It is very clear that Harris had a large role in them because he's gone, and it did come this year. The classic Del Rio midseason turn. So Visselmeyer comes in. He's got not a whole lot of NFL experience, not a lot of high major college experience, if any. He's extremely inexperienced. He's basically only worked for Del Rio. The position is way too big for him. And to compound the fact that he's not good at the job, they took DBs, his position, with the first and second picks in their draft. So you have now essentially wasted a year of development for Quan Martin and Emmanuel Forbes, who will have to start over next year, learning from hopefully a great defensive backs coach that can get the most out of their vast talent. Which brings me to kind of a larger point before we get to the final 7 here in 1st and 10. This is something we'll flush out more as the week goes. I think we have actually crossed a Rubicon in talking about the talent on this team. Everyone now is going, we overrated the talent. I actually don't think it's that good. I don't know that that's correct. And this is kind of a 2A. This is not an official 1st and 10 take. This is a put a pin in it. We're going to talk about this tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, and probably for the rest of the season. I have no idea how good the talent on this defense is because it was so poorly coached that I can't judge the players. And I just can't. There are certain guys that you're like, man, I expect a lot more. But if they are not being set up well to be successful, how can we say that they actually now are bad? Did Deron Payne and John Allen suddenly become like not very effective football players? I highly doubt it. I think the scheme stinks, and some of the complementary talent may not be so complimentary. Is Quan Martin, who a lot of people liked and was properly drafted in the second round, or Emmanuel Forbes, who was overdrafted probably, but not by a dramatic amount. Maybe he was a second, but plenty of people also had him as a later first, not going ahead of Christian Gonzalez, but it wasn't like they drafted a fourth-round corner in the first. Do we actually know if they're any good? Benjamin St. Juste got worse this year. Is he a bad football player now, or is he being asked to do things that are outrageous, and if he had a better coach, then we'd know better? The assessment of talent is basically impossible, and the fact that they used a first and second rounder at a position where they had a coach who was this much of, I'm sorry, but a failure. I hate saying that because it feels so harsh and hot takey, but look at the freaking results. Is really damning. And so hopefully this talent is actually way better, and that helps accelerate the rebuild next year. But it's something that very keen eyes, scout, GM, front office wise, are going to have to look at when they watch the tape this offseason, the new regime that comes in, and evaluate, hey, was that a schematic failure or a player failure? And then make a decision on who they want to bring back and who they want to upgrade on moving forward.
Number 3.
All right, number 3, as we get to the game itself, is Ron Rivera's management of it. Twice in plus territory in the first quarter, Rivera chooses to punt. Why? Don't do that. That's silly. One, you have a kicker with an absolute bazooka leg. And maybe you're scared he's going to miss. Maybe he had a bad warm-up. I don't know. We'd never know all the information. But I can't, unless something was truly wrong, a 57-yard field goal or a 60-yard field goal even for Joey Sly indoors, he can make that. Kick it. Or one of them's a 4th and 2, one of them's a 4th and 3. Maybe you go for it. Would have been nice. And then, of course, they go for it later in the game with just terrible field position, and that's really what ends the game. That 4th and 1 a little bit later, which brings us to, by the way,
number 4.
That 4th and 1 on your own 30-yard line. You're stuck dropping back there, and I guess you have to go for it at that point if you really want to win. And Logan made this point on the post-game podcast, which I appreciate. Are you trying to have a respectable score, or are you trying to win the football game? You got to try to go for it there. But it's 4th and inches, and you're drop back passing with your O-line and their D-line. I do not love that at all. You found some cool creative ways to get Sam out on the move. You've run an option at the goal line, you've booted, you've rolled, you've done all these kinds of different things. You got to do something like that for me there. I hate, just let's drop back and see if we can get something real quick. Immediate pressure. Poopy. Which brings us to, actually,
number 5.
I've mentioned this a couple times this year, and I just keep mentioning it because I feel more strongly about it. They stink in short yardage without Alex Arma. Their fullback shouldn't be this important, but it feels like when he's in there, they've got all kinds of stuff, and they can just use him as a battering ram and pick up short yards. And without him, they try to get super creative because they have no trust in their offense to get a yard running the football, and this is what happens. So, again, Alex Arma has, and I almost bring it up, to call attention to the fact, not that he's got an injury and it's sad. Commanders, unfortunate. They didn't have him active for the first 7 weeks of the season by choice. And then he played 3 weeks and things were better, and then he's been hurt and things have gone back sideways again. So that's not great.
Number 6.
Speaking of short yardage, it's more specific to another situation. Third quarter, 3rd and 1. They take a shot to Terry. Love the idea. Would love Terry to make a better play on that ball, find a way to draw a PI, make the catch. But Stephon Gilmore's a very good corner, and at the end of the day, he made a good play. He's running stride for stride. It's a good throw by Sam. Maybe he could get it out a little bit more. so that it's like over Gilmore's head and drops more in the bucket. But at the end of the day, that's a pretty good throw. It's a good play by Gilmore. It's a good attempt by Terry, but you'd like to see him somehow make a better play on that. So then it's 4th and 1. And I like the 3rd and 1 shot if you know you're going for it on 4th and 1. Say it again. Said it before. Plenty of people smarter than me can explain all of the reasons why this call stinks, but I'll give you a couple. Gun runs on short yardage stink. And I have come around on this more and more recently where I'm just like, you see the results, and I don't hate gun runs. I hate gun runs when it's 100% going to be a run. And the reason is because gun runs go away from the back 90%-ish of the time. So if the back is lined up to the left of the quarterback, the run's going right, which means as a defensive lineman, I can crash hard right. Now, you'd hope that you can take advantage of that, and it's like, okay, we're gonna fake, and then we're gonna roll Sam to the left, and then maybe you get a clean edge. But what happens on this 4th and 1 is exactly that. They run the ball, back is left of Howell. They run to the right, and the defensive end crashes hard inside of Charles Leno, and Leno's got to make the block, but it's a tough block. Like, you're setting your guy up to have a much more difficult task than if you just ran the same play out of the dot and that defensive lineman had to play it straight. He knows the ball is going away from me. And whether it's going inside or outside, it's going that way. I am not getting a cutback in my lane. Like, there is no angle for that to happen. It is a front side play, or if it's a cutback, it's on like an outside zone, and I'm going to be there to clean up that cutback. And so it gets blown up. Of course, Jahan Dotson getting in the way doesn't help, but it's just a bad call from go. I hate it. I hate it so much. I don't get why you do it.
Number 7.
The distribution, again, offensively, at this point, like, I feel a little bit, not bad, but I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here. I just don't like the way this offense is designed from like a distribution standpoint. I do not like that the best player on the team cannot seem to get the ball in his hands on a more regular basis. And they did a good job of getting Curtis Samuel involved in this one. 12 targets. He's got 9 catches for 100 yards on those 12 targets. Like, Curtis was really great in the game. And it's not for lack of trying, and I think this is an important thing. Terry has 11 targets in the game, but they're very low percentage targets, right? He's got 4 catches on 11 targets. I don't think it's because Terry McLaurin is dropping a bunch of balls. He's had some more drops this year than he's ever had before, but he's also had a ton more like contested, like high. It's a lot of make or break stuff. And I just wish that they would line him up in places that allows him to get some of these targets that Curtis is getting, that Logan Thomas is getting. Over the middle of the field, easy, quick slants. Like, win with him without him having to win. Win with the pen with Terry more often. Jahan, 6 targets in this game. That's fine. Maybe like that a little bit higher. Can you get Gibson a couple more touches? He's only got 4 in the game in terms of targets. But at the end of the day, just the inability to get, and maybe that's what the bullet point should be more than the distribution. The inability to get Terry McLaurin the football is a fundamental flaw in this offense, and I really wish they could figure out how to freaking fix it.
Number 8.
The next step for Sam Howell, who was pretty good again in this game. We'll talk more about Sam tomorrow after I've had a chance to talk with Logan about all the tape. But all in all, like, Sam's clearly very good in this game. He continues to elevate the offense, create stuff off schedule, create stuff off platform. So this is not me criticizing Sam and being like, he's terrible. If he could just do this thing. No, Sam is good. Here's how he gets better. Here's how he goes from young quarterback to like really crushing it, doing big boy veteran quarterback stuff. And it's something that Tony Romo talked about during the broadcast. On high-low reads, he is often looking low to try to draw defenders up and then sneak a ball behind him high. Doesn't work in the NFL. You need to look high and then throw low. And as Romo said, I thought this was a great point. What you learn is that instead of a 14-yard, like, sliding high-level catch and throw, like high-level difficulty catch and throw, where guys like running a deep out on the sideline for 14 yards, you throw the ball 6 yards to the underneath guy, there's a ton of space, and he runs for 6 more, and you wind up getting 12 yards anyway. So just make the easy throw and do it quickly. And I think there were some times in this game where he tries to take the intermediate or deep route. It's better already than it was earlier in the year, so he's already improving here. I just think that's a big step that he's got to take.
Number 9.
The lack of pass rush is just absolutely ridiculous. I cannot believe how much time Dak Prescott had. This Dallas offensive line is really, really good. Like, they're on Philly's level. They're that good. But Allen and Payne really just are uninspiring right now as pass rushers. And I know it's a tough job when you got all the attention on you and there's not really great edge play. But they got to figure it out. They're getting, like, that's why they're supposed to be them. And it's not like Casey Tuhill's totally inept outside and that some of these younger guys don't have any pass rush juice. It just, they got, the inability to generate pressure is another huge reason why Del Rio got fired. And that was on display in a pretty wild way on Sunday. And then last but not least,
Number 10.
Y'all can get mad at me if you want, but Dak eating the turkey leg was hilarious. I'm sorry, it just was. Dak, like, if it didn't happen to your team, you'd think that was the funniest thing you saw all weekend. Dude was so confident that he was going to score another touchdown that he told his teammates, nah, we got to get one more. This game's not out of hand yet. We're still going to be able to do the turkey leg. And then he went down on the next drive, scored another touchdown, and ate a turkey leg. He ate a turkey leg on the field on Thanksgiving. And it's another reason Jack Del Rio had to go, because that is high-key embarrassing. But it was also high-key hilarious. And if you don't like that, you don't like humor, and you're being a sassy pants because your team got absolutely crushed. I get it, because your team got absolutely crushed. But that was funny.
What's up, kiddos? It's your boy Clinton Yates from ESPN. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Tell your mama I said what's up.